Hello, it is Creature, and normally, once I talk about a game, that's it, one and done. However, I want to talk about a game again, and since my first video was made when my mic sounded like this, and I worked solely off of a laptop and didn't know what the hell a script was. Today we're going to be talking about a game that I had waited 8 years for. During that wait, I had successfully gone through all of the metamorphic stages between adolescence and adulthood. Bannerlord is a game that I've played on and off since 2020, and its predecessor, Warband, was one of the roughly 10 games that I would play constantly as a child. Wait, I'm seeing a pattern here. Bannerlord takes place in the land of Calvary, and takes place a few hundred years before Warband, and in a completely different universe than Viking Conquest. It takes place during the current Imperial Civil War. The Empire, plagued with corruption, tribal unrest, and age, saw all of its issues that had been boiling under the surface for a century come to head at the Battle of Pendrick, where the quote-unquote Western barbarians revolted and were able to destroy one of the main Imperial forces through an alliance between the French, Scottish, and Norse. This battle saw the Emperor killed and the heartlands of the Empire fractured as the other vassal kingdoms declared their independence, throwing Calradia into an era of uncertainty. You are a nobody. Your family was attacked by brigands, and your father and mother were both killed. Your younger siblings were kidnapped, and now all that remains of you is you and your adult brother. And since Bannerlord is one of those games where you can do whatever you want, I doubt our playthroughs are even going to start the same. I feel that the best way to describe Bannerlord's gameplay is by regaling you with my current playthrough and talk about things as they come up. So first off, you're going to be plopped onto the map where there's a tutorial. I've never done it. At the start, you're going to have a few objectives in order to complete to actually start the game. Get some followers, get a companion, and get some cash. But before all that, we actually need to make a character. There are 6 different cultures, each of which has their own specific troops and roles for an army. If you played the first game, then the quote-unquote old factions still roughly have the same roles. The current factions are Valandians, generalist with good ranged options, and in my opinion have the best heavy cavalry. Bretonnians or Celtic have good range and good melee. They don't have much armor and not much to say in the realm of cavalry. They're very good as defensive units, and I typically try and garrison my holdings with them. Imperials from the east, west, and north. They're a hard generalist with options for all troop types. They have more heavy units the more powerful they get, and have a wide swath of top tier units with options for every single troop category. Sturgians are heavy infantry and skirmish units. Mainly use these guys as footmen. They're real decent and tanky units as infantry. However, they do lack a lot of cavalry and are mainly useful as just your front line. The Kuze Khanate, they are a lot of horses and mainly focus on horse archers if you couldn't tell by the name Khanate. They have other infantry options for archers and whatnot. However, if you're going to be getting units from a clan called the Khanate, let's be honest, it's going to be horse archers. The Asurai are good generalists similar to the Valandians, however, they lack dedicated melee cavalry. Personally, I don't ever really use Asurai troops. In my opinion, it's just way too far out of the way, and I'm not going down to the desert lands unless it's crusade time. At the very start of the game, you can choose what culture you are from. This actually impacts gameplay, as Bannerlord isn't one to shy away from historical racism. Your race determines some bonuses, and also how likely your soon-to-be vassals and subjects will accept your benevolent rule, along with some racial bonuses and drawbacks depending on your culture. This is another spot where you're going to be deciding how you want to play your game. And while, yes, you can do whatever you want in this game, I'd argue that all the different various methods of playing Bannerlord boil down into 3 categories. 1, you can become a ruler. This can be done by either joining a kingdom or forging your own. This is, in all honesty, the most common way people play this game, and it's how the main story is geared. Secondly, you could also just become a merchant. Merchant runs are going to be a lot less combat and are more focusing on acquiring wealth and maxing out relations with more of the lawful NPCs. Then finally, you can become a brigand king. Very uncommon and kinda hard to do, but you can make a pretty penny through less than legal means, via slaughtering the innocent, raiding villages, and attacking caravans. You can also start gaining control of the different back streets in the other cities. For this video, I'm only going to be focusing on becoming a ruler. Anyway, your childhood will give you your starting stats and attributes. Depending on your culture, you'll get different options. There are 6 stats, each correlating to 3 attributes. The attributes become stronger the greater each main stat is. So for instance, if you take more vigor, then all of your melee skills are going to get slightly buffed, even if you don't use them that often. Adding a stat point to, say, vigor will give a slight increase to the experience and level cap of all of the melee ability. However, if you were to, say, focus one-handed, that would then stack with the stat multiplier, giving you a greatly increased experience gain and increasing your level cap for one-handed. Make sense? Great. Also, I feel that this needs mentioning, however, I think it goes without saying, but skills only level up whenever they're actually being used. So if you actually want to level up the one-handed, beat people to death. If you want to level up charm, be nice to people. If you want to level up your roguery, sell people into slavery. At the start of the game, you will be predominantly dealing with Imperial troops, since you start right in the middle of the Empire. Regardless of how you play your first character, your first bit of time in Calvary will be spent hunting down bandits and getting some free loot and early armor, taking quests from notable NPCs that control the villages and cities, and most importantly, tournaments. Since you'll be starting with a max party size of 20 troops, I highly recommend having 2 10-man stacks, one of archers and one of infantry, as archers are going to be very strong against the early game unarmored units. It is in my honest and professional opinion that tournaments are going to be your main source of income at the beginning of the game, and they can even give you some very overpowered armor and weapons. You can also bet on yourself and rake in some decent cash. However, after a time your betting odds will get worse, as you will remain relatively undefeated, if you're good. Followers can be recruited from any town, and troops can also be recruited from towns and settlements. If you wish to have a good time and not spend countless hours schmoozing random NPCs for the opportunity to pay some random-ass farmhand to join you, then turn on easy recruiting. The followers you get are extremely important, as they can act as everything from your lieutenants commanding different detachments during combat, generals that can have their own armies, and governors that can assist in the development of settlements and towns that you control. They can be recruited from taverns and brought into your party. You can also play a board game in the tavern as well. Anyway, once you've completed the first few missions that are effectively ask a bunch of people about the Battle of Pendrick and save your siblings from slavery, the game opens up to you. You can do the main mission or not. It doesn't really matter. You can do, quite literally, whatever you want. However, you are now in a clan, and you will be able to gear your siblings' skills as they grow up, marry them off for alliances, or have them lead their own parties. But as you start to grow in strength, I'd highly recommend joining a kingdom. This allows you to have some bigger battles and the ability to gain a lot of renown. Renown is effectively your clan's experience. You can't really do too much with it until you get to rank 4, which allows you to make your own kingdom from a city that you own. Speaking around cities, you're going to want to hover around these, even if you don't own them. Why? Because you can buy property and start making passive income. However, these businesses are quite the investment. You're going to need around 25,000 to buy a workshop, and you will lose the workshop if you go to war with the kingdom that owns the city. I'm not going to go into a whole how to make the workshops extremely profitable. We don't have time for that. I just recommend getting one and gearing it towards refining whatever stuff is being produced nearby and stocking it with cheap materials from other cities. You can also walk around the settlements, and you don't need to do this all the time, but you will need to do it in order to complete some quests. It's also kinda nice getting a layout of a city before you siege it. In the meantime, there's gonna be a lot of stuff for you to do. Clearing out hideouts in the early game is pretty easy once you get some high tier troops, and it gives decent loot and makes everybody like you more. All you really need to do is get like 9 high tier units and cut them loose, and then try and keep up. At the end, you can either duel the brigand leader or fight what remains. In my opinion, dueling them is always the best outcome, since a 1v1 is pretty good odds and you're gonna be getting some decent captives. Assuming you're not shit at the game. You can also get into smithing, where until you get to level 100 in smithing, you're just going to be breaking down weapons and refining stuff. After that, you can reliably get 10 to 50k every time you enter a settlement. As of writing, I am currently wandering around with over half a mil. While smithing is by far the most tedious skill in the game, it pays dividends, and it used to be a lot worse when the game came out. Oh, I yearn for the days where you could break down a few axes only worth 50 gold each and forge them into a couple swords that all sold for 5,000. You can also do missions for lords or nobles in order to get some cash and relations. However, I don't really feel that these are worth doing beyond getting your first couple dozen levels in charm. Bannerlord's progression can be equated to One Piece. Why am I bringing up One Piece again? That's because Llama and my brother got me watching One Piece, and now, less than 5 months after beginning my voyage, I'm post-time skip. Everything mentioned earlier is like the East Blue. Once you join a kingdom, that's when you get to the Grand Line. Kingdoms go to war, and you should fight in those wars. In fact, you're gonna have to fight in those wars, as the new holdings that you have been graciously given will most likely be on the border between you and someone you're at war with. The battles will be much harder than anything else up until this point, since you're no longer fighting small skirmishes with the dregs of society, but instead now facing down trained troops and their commanders in massive open field battles. These battles are very hectic, and you can feel that yes, there are 1,000 troops on screen, and yes, you are heading a massive cavalry charge into the enemy's back line, and it feels fucking awesome. While you won't get all the loot, and most of the glory will go to your higher ups, you can bide your time. Eventually, you'll get a party size of over 100, and after getting some influence and taking your first settlement, assuming your king gives it to you, you should have a decent positive income and an army strong enough to 1v1 other lords, or 1v2. Or 1v3. This is where the money really starts to roll in, as the post-battle loot can be sold for tens of thousands of gold, and your troops are starting to get maxed out. At this point, you should have multiple parties from your clan just kind of roaming the map, and your younger siblings should be growing up and coming of age, allowing you to have them head their own parties. This is very important, as once you are part of a kingdom, you can form armies, composed of hundreds of troops from different lords. You can add people to your armies with influence. However, people from your clan can be added for free. Now that you can field over 1,000 troops in your army, it's time to start doing some siege battles. After getting your first few cities, it's time for, well, time skip, to be honest. And by time skip, I mean time skip for you, the viewer, not for me, the player, since you're going to need to defend what you conquered, lest you lose what you have gained. During this time, you should be spending some time with diplomacy in order to gain relations with the other lords, beefing up your settlements, and ignoring every single war you get once you get to rank 4. Why? Because we're about to rebel and we're gonna need friends. From here, we can unfurl the banner of Calvary and declare ourselves as a new kingdom. Welcome to the new world, as now your original kingdom is going to be gunning for you with the utmost fervor, and other more opportunistic kingdoms will see you as easy pickings, or as a threat. You're going to need to use all of your skills and abilities to get more lords to join you, and try and get a massive army and or a massive stockpile of money. All I can say is good luck. In keeping up with the One Piece metaphor, I'm only at Fishman Island, so you're kinda on your own from here. Personally, I just beat a few Valandian lords and quickly pieced out of my independence war, utilizing my vast amounts of forge money. However, reparations are quite expensive. So currently I'm looking for new friends, and gaining those friends and allies will allow me to take back what is mine from the Valandians. That being 6,000 gold a day. In terms of multiplayer, all I can really say is that, yeah, this game has it. And to actually be able to play it, you have to select multiplayer from the launcher, and there you go. There are 2 modes, Team Deathmatch and Captain. The actual cultures that you can play as are determined by popular vote. So if you want to play something that isn't meta, then you're going to be disappointed. Team Deathmatch is just picking a class and then playing as that. You get points from kills, and more points means you can use better classes after you die. Captain is an odd game mode, as you and the other captains must, with little to no verbal communication, actively plan and strategize over an active and open battlefield. This can be fun if you get some friends together, but that can be said for all multiplayer. All multiplayer games are fun if you have friends, but from my experience, the 2 game modes aren't that great. You're gonna have a lot more fun in single player. Bannerlord is a great game, and it's a sequel. And Bannerlord does what a sequel should do. It takes many of the best aspects of Warband and pumps them up greatly. The graphics in Warband were off, to say the least. However, Bannerlord is a good-looking, grand strategy battle simulation game that can have 1,000 combatants on screen natively, with a massively expanded map and a bunch of new factions. It absolutely blows its predecessors out of the water. I give it a solid 9 out of 10. It's a great game with a lot of charm and a lot of uniqueness to it. Warband was one of my favorite games as a kid, and Bannerlord does not disappoint. It's a worthy successor to Warband, and despite the fact that a campaign in this game can take well over 100 hours to complete, you can easily pick up and play whenever. Got an hour to do stuff? Siege a city or do some quests. Got like 30 minutes? Do some economic stuff that needs being done or have a field battle or 2. It's a great game, and honestly, I highly recommend you get it. That's gonna be it for this video, and before I call it quits for today, I just wanted to say, holy crap, we hit 10K. Yeah, that's insane. That in less than a month, or a little over a month, I went from like 1,000 to 10,000, which is mind-blowing for me. So to everybody who's subbed and is watching this stuff, thank you so very much. I'm very excited. I'm gonna be doing some more streams here in the future once I kind of get a set schedule. Thanks for watching. I greatly appreciate it, and y'all have a good 2025, and I will see y'all in the next one. Peace.
You will end up just as I thought, just as I thought. Friend, you better watch out. You will end up just as I thought, just as I thought, just as I thought.
Don't let Salmo get his bread. He might be rich, but we will be dead. Talk to Dorian and Talos.